Imagine a young man named Paul Kalanithi, born to parents who valued service and knowledge. His family moved from New York to the arid town of Kingman, Arizona, where the desert stretched endlessly, teaching Paul about isolation and resilience. His father, a cardiologist, often worked long hours, but earned the deep trust of his patients through kindness and skill. Paul saw this and admired it, but his own path led first to books. His mother, concerned about the local schools, created a reading list of great literature. Paul immersed himself in works by authors like T.S. Eliot, George Orwell, and Walt Whitman. These stories stirred questions in his mind. What makes a life meaningful? How do we find purpose in a vast world? As Paul entered Stanford University, he chose to study English literature and human biology. Literature offered a window into emotions and ethics, while biology explained the body's mechanisms. He spent summers at a camp in the Sierra Nevada mountains, where the beauty of nature deepened his wonder. After earning his bachelor's degrees, Paul pursued a master's in English, focusing on Whitman. Yet, he felt a pull toward something more hands-on. I was driven to science and medicine because they offered a way to engage with human suffering directly, he later explained. Academia seemed too abstract. He wanted to act in the world. Paul applied to Yale School of Medicine and was accepted. There, he met Lucy, a fellow student with a warm heart and sharp mind. They fell in love amid the challenges of medical training. The first 2 years involved books and lectures, but also the dissection of cadavers. Paul remembered the bodies as silent teachers, revealing the intricate design of life. The dead were patient instructors, he thought. He and his classmates read How We Die by Sherwin Newland, a book that described death's processes without sentiment. It prepared them for the reality that bodies fail and lives end. The final 2 years brought Paul into hospitals and clinics. He delivered babies, witnessing the miracle of new life. He performed surgeries, feeling the weight of responsibility. One experience stood out. A patient whose EKG Lucy had practiced on died soon after. It showed how fragile existence is. Paul learned that doctors need not only knowledge, but also mental strength. Practical experience is imperative, he realized. Mistakes could harm, but compassion could heal. Paul decided on neurosurgery as his specialty. The brain fascinated him as the center of identity, thought, and soul. Because the brain mediates our experience of the world, any neurosurgical problem forces a patient and family to answer this question. What makes life meaningful enough to go on living? He wrote. He returned to Stanford for residency, a 7-year ordeal of intense work. The schedule was grueling. 100-hour weeks, overnight calls for emergencies. In the operating room, time seemed to vanish as Paul focused on precision. A scalpel slip of 1 or 2 millimeters could change a life forever. Areas controlling language were especially sacred, often untouchable to avoid irreversible damage. Early in residency, Paul and a colleague named Jeff developed dark humor to cope with constant death. They made jokes about patients' fates. But when a close friend died in a car accident, Paul re-evaluated. He committed to emotional care. For one patient with a risky brain procedure, he gathered the family, talked through options with calm honesty, and helped them decide. The surgery succeeded, and the woman recovered. This affirmed his approach. As a resident, my highest ideal was not saving lives. Everyone dies eventually, but guiding a patient or family to an understanding of death or illness. He reflected, empathy brought vulnerability. When you take up another's cross, you must be willing to sometimes get crushed by its weight, Paul noted. Many patients died despite his efforts, leaving him heartbroken. Yet, he never questioned the worth of his work. During a break in residency, Paul studied neuroscience in a lab led by a man he called V, became a mentor, showing brilliance and dedication. When V was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, he fought back and returned to work. This inspired Paul, demonstrating that illness does not define a person. In his 6th year, surgeries dominated Paul's life. He described the OR as a black hole where focus erased time. He achieved technical mastery, but the responsibility weighed heavy. Then, tragedy. Jeff's patient died from complications, and Jeff took his own life that night. Paul mourned, wishing he could have shared a lesson. Death will always win, but it is still valuable to strive for one's patients. As residency ended, Paul received national awards and job offers from elite universities. He and Lucy planned for children and a balanced life. Paul felt ready to thrive. Then, symptoms emerged: sharp back pain, unexplained weight loss, fatigue. He tried to ignore them, blaming work stress. X-rays showed nothing at first, but pain worsened. Lucy sensed Paul withdrawing and planned a brief separation to reconnect. But a chest scan changed everything. Paul, the neurosurgeon, recognized the signs in his own images: lungs filled with tumors. The diagnosis was obvious. Stage 4 lung cancer, he recalled. His future crumbled. Admitted to the hospital, Paul felt his dreams evaporate. Lucy vowed to stay by his side. Paul met Emma, his oncologist, who focused on hope. Tests revealed a mutation, making the cancer treatable with targeted drugs. "I will help you return to neurosurgery if that is what you want," she said. Paul began therapy, but weakness overwhelmed him. Basic tasks, like walking, became struggles. His family arrived, offering love and aid. Paul started physical therapy, slowly regaining strength. He and Lucy discussed having a child. It would bring joy, but also pain, Paul thought. Lucy wanted his input. He wanted hers. They agreed. Life must go on. They conceived. Paul pushed to return to surgery. He adjusted therapy for surgeon's stamina, standing long hours, fine motor skills. His first operation felt familiar, hands steady from muscle memory. But anxiety caused faintness. A resident finished. Each day, Paul improved, taking on more cases, reconnecting with patients. Joy returned. 7 months on, another scan. New tumors. Cancer progressed. Paul completed his last surgery Friday. It went well until the attending doctor erred, spilling fluid. Paul fixed it, then left the hospital, weeping in his car. Chemotherapy started every 3 weeks. Side effects ravaged: nausea, hair loss, exhaustion. Complications kept him from work. On graduation day, uncontrollable vomiting led to hospitalization for dehydration. Doctors stabilized him. 2 days later, Katie was born on July 4th. Holding her, Paul felt pure happiness. You filled a dying man's days with sated joy. A joy unknown to me in all my prior years, he wrote to her. She affirmed his existence beyond death. Around Christmas, treatment failed. Cancer spread to the brain. Paul devoted himself to writing his memoir, a dream from his literature days. Spring brought breathing difficulties. Oxygen helped. In his final days, labored breaths led to the hospital. A BiPAP machine aided temporarily, but the next step was a ventilator. Paul, knowing he might not recover, chose comfort care. I am ready, he told Lucy. Family gathered. He said goodbyes, held Katie one last time. Removed from the mask, he slipped into unconsciousness. That evening, at 37, Paul took his last breath. Lucy, in the epilogue, described Paul's unfinished book as a gift. He wanted to help people face mortality with integrity. What happened to Paul was tragic, but he was not a tragedy, she wrote. He lived fully, striving despite suffering. Paul's story inspires because it shows resilience in adversity. He teaches that life is about constant striving, as Darwin and Nietzsche noted. Values change. We must adapt. The tricky thing about terminal illness is your values are constantly changing. You try to figure out what matters to you, and then you keep figuring it out, he said. Science offers no ultimate meaning, but relationships do. Human knowledge is never contained in one person. It grows from the relationships we create, he believed. In facing death, Paul found familiarity with it. If the weight of mortality does not grow lighter, does it, at least, grow more familiar? He asked. He urges us to live authentically, without assuming endless time. Maybe, in the absence of certainty, we should just assume we are going to live a long time. Maybe that is the only way forward. Paul's legacy is a call to embrace life. Seek purpose in work, love, and creation. Do not avoid suffering, transform it. His narration reminds us, until the end, we are alive. Let his courage light your path, encouraging you to build a life of meaning, one breath at a time.